A little bit later, in fact, in just a couple of minutes on this very broadcast. So we are getting set for our first bout of the evening. It is the WBC Middleweight Championship, and let's go behind the scenes and first check out the fighters who are making final preparations. Here is the champion, Julian Jackson of St. Thomas, the Virgin Islands, about to make his first defense. A 3.5 to 1 favorite, started at 9 to 1, went to 2 to 1. The odds dropped, the largest shift in 30 years. Meanwhile, we shift over to the challengers dressing room. Here he is, Dennis Milton of the Bronx, New York, rated #1 by the WBC. Although he's had only 19 pro fights, extensive amateur career, including 4 Golden Gloves titles. Tonight, his first shot at a world title, and I'll tell you, he is most determined to pull off the upset.
Big round for Jackson here, this last 30 seconds particularly. Drayton is still firing back. Oh, a big left hand. Oh, a tremendous left hand.
Hooked him.
Drayton
Right
dropped
on
like
the
a
button.
tree. Drayton dropped like a tree. And he is not going to make it up. It's all over. He's trying desperately. Buster Drayton gamely trying to get up with a huge left hand for Julian Jackson. A third-round knockout.
Whenever I enter the ring, I feel that I'm not going to go the distance. Regardless of what happened, I just feel that the fight will not go the distance. And, you know, I'm not out there to call any rounds, but I'm out there to win the fight. But I believe that whenever I hit my opponent in the right places, he cannot stay up.
Jackson possesses a deadly knockout punch and one of boxing's best knockout percentages. His record is an incredible 41-1 with 39 KOs. The only blemish on his record came at the hands of Mike McCallum. It was Jackson's 30th professional fight, but he was not equipped to handle the onslaught of the man they call the body snatcher. McCallum stopped Jackson in the second round and retained the junior middleweight title. It proved to be an expensive but valuable lesson for the knockout artist from St. Thomas. Jackson lost his undefeated status, but gained the experience to become a champion.
I went in there and just threw punches without thinking. And I lost in the second round. But I heard him in the first round, you know, and he said it was the hardest punch he have ever received from a fighter. And, you know, I've learned from that fight ever since.
Julian moves in. Good right hand. Vicious left hook. Another right. And down goes back. He won't get up. I don't think he can. But it looks like he will. All of a sudden, I thought he was out totally. And then he gets to his feet. Mills Lane questioning him, examining him. That was a tough knockdown. And he comes for the kill. Mills will stop it if he doesn't do something quick. That's it. This fight's all over. Mills Lane stops the fight before Beck gets hurt. Julian Jackson is the new WBA World Junior Middleweight Champion.
Being a world champion, you know, it really did something to me. My deceased trainer, Willie George, he was the one that instilled that spark in me that I could become a champion, you know, and I dedicated that fight to him.
Once he was crowned champion, Julian Jackson ruled the junior middleweight division with iron fists. Even a future world champion like Terry Norris could not withstand the firepower of Jackson. At times, even Jackson himself is impressed by his knockout ability.
Oh man, that punch was, I mean, it was right on the button. It was timed beautifully. It was one of my favorite punches, and I looked at it over and over and over. I knew when I hit him, he was out, because whenever I hit my opponent, and I knew that I caught him right, I would just walk away because I feel a shock all the way up to my elbow. And whenever I feel that shock, I know it's over.
Jackson relinquished his junior middleweight title and took his knockout punch up to the middleweight division. He floored Harold Graham last year to win the vacant WBC championship. The aftermath of the bout put the new champion's life and career in turmoil. Jackson needed eye surgery to repair both retinas. Even though he had successfully recovered from the operation, the WBC was reluctant to sanction Jackson in the ring. Jackson's doctors responded in writing to the WBC, assuring them Jackson was fit to fight.
being laid up in the hospital and then coming out, and then after I have to be going through this thing with the WBC, I've learned a lot about Julian Jackson, and I've learned that he's a fellow that has a lot of faith. He's a fellow that I believe is one of the greatest champion ever in the boxing. I always told Dan King that he will never find a fighter like me. He will never have a champion like Julian Jackson. I'm not going to give him the reason, I'm not going to tell him why yet, but he's going to find out.
This #1 contender is anxious to find out how good Jackson really is. Dennis Milton's desire to fight for the title borders on obsession.
My focus is just on Julian Jackson. Everything is Julian Jackson. Julian Jackson, Julian Jackson. If you look at the 19 guys that I fought, each and every one of them are bona fide fighters. They're not some Johnny-come-latelys, from somewhere you never heard of and someone you'll never see again after they've gotten beaten. I've fought and beaten quality fighters all throughout my career, my professional career. And if you look back, goes way back into the amateur days. I sat back and I waited patiently. I watched other fighters come and go. And I wished them well and I congratulated them. I knew that my time would come. My time is now. I'm prepared for it and I'm going to win the title.
And a look at the challenger, Dennis Milton, who has made his way into the ring for the biggest fight of his professional life, his first world title shot. His list of opponents, with just a few exceptions, will not bowl you over. Only 2 fights in 2 years. And Ferdy, will the quality of opposition and inactivity hurt him?
I certainly will. I mean, I certainly would hate to come in and face Julian Jackson with a bunch of ring rust. He's been inactive for 18 months, which gives you, and still rated #1, which gives you some idea of what a haphazard procedure rating fighters is these days.
Well, he told us he may be inactive fighting, but he's been sparring with world-class fighters, but you wonder if that is the same thing. And to the champion, Julian Jackson. It's been 10 months since he last fought, winning the vacant WBC middleweight crown from Londoner Harold Grant. He's overcome 1989 surgery for a detached retina and a torn retina. And Ferdy, despite getting a clean bill of health, do the eyes pose a problem?
I think they do. I'm one of the people that have had 30 years experience looking at people with detached retinas. I really would not like to see a fighter risk his eyesight, even though laser surgery now apparently has solved the problem. But 5 years is really a test of time. You got to see 5 years down the line what happens with Sugar Ray Leonard's eyes, what happens with Julian Jackson's. I certainly hope that procedure is now the cure-all for detached retina. But I, for one, would not risk my eyesight in order for the sport of boxing.
Jackson's had the long layoff. He is a KO specialist. He told us he will not be cautious because of the eyes. And Ferdy, he plans to go right at Milton from the first bell.
That's the only way he fights. That's the only way he can do it. He's got to forget his eyes and keep on going. There's nothing actually he can do to protect the eyes. That's just part of the sport. You're going to get hit on the face.
Let's go to the tail of the tape and see how these two stack up. Julian Jackson turned 31 this past Thursday. Dennis Milton is 30. Jackson a half-inch taller at 5'10 and a half. Both came in just under 160, and the reach almost even, so overall very close, at least numerically. The rules, according to the WBC, a 10-point must system. 3 judges will score the fight. No standing 8 count. No 3 knockdown rule. Only the referee can stop the fight, and a fighter cannot be saved by the bell except in the last round. We are at the Mirage Arena in Las Vegas, getting set for the WBC Middleweight Championship. Let's go to ring announcer Jimmy Lennon Jr. for the official introductions.
Ladies and gentlemen, a very good evening to you and welcome to the beautiful Mirage Resort in Las Vegas, Nevada, as Don King Productions and the Mirage, in association with Budweiser, the king of beers, present the first of our 2 feature bouts of the evening, the WBC Middleweight Championship of the World. This event is sanctioned by the World Boxing Council President Jose Sulaiman and the supervisor Hague Collegiate, along with the Nevada State Athletic Commission. Presenting the officials as appointed, judges at ringside, Art Lurie of Las Vegas, also from Las Vegas, Dalby Shirley, and from Sacramento, California, Terry Smith. And now introducing the referee in charge of this bout, Mills Lane. Well, fans, here we go. This feature event is for the WBC Middleweight Championship of the World, scheduled for 12 rounds of boxing. Introducing to you first on my right, the challenger fighting out of the blue corner. He is wearing black and white trunks and fighting out of the Bronx in New York. He weighed in at 159 pounds with a record of 16 wins, 2 losses, and 1 draw. He has 5 wins by way of knockout. He is the #1 middleweight contender by the WBC, and they call him the Magician, Dennis Milton. His opponent across the ring. On my left, fighting out of the red corner, he enters the ring wearing gold trunks with red trim. He's hailing from St. Thomas in the Virgin Islands, and he weighed in at a ready 158 pounds. His outstanding record includes 41 victories, only 1 defeat, and 39 big wins by way of knockout. He's the former WBA junior middleweight champion, currently the reigning WBC middleweight champion of the world, Julian the Hawk Jackson. Once again, here's your referee in charge, Mills Lane, now to give instructions.
All right, come on. All right, we've already been through the instructions one time. It was for the championship of the world. Expect a tough, clean fight. Protect yourself at all times. Any questions from the challenger? No questions. Any questions from the champion? Let's get it on. Come on.
Yes, the always pointed Mills Lane, who's a district judge out of Reno, as we're getting set for Julian Jackson, his first title defense of the WBC middleweight crown, as he takes on the #1 challenger, Dennis Milton, scheduled for 12. Here we go, round 1. Julian Jackson, the Hawk, the champion, and the gold with the red trim. Dennis Milton, the Magician, the challenger, #1 contender, in the black and white trunks. And Jackson, as he told us, going right at Milton.
And Milton looks like he's got the game plan of holding on, and I hope he doesn't think he can do that for 12 rounds. He's got to do a little bit of fighting besides just grabbing him.
I asked Milton what he has to do to upset Jackson. He said, my boxing ability and boxing savvy will take care of that. He said Jackson's going out. Jackson told us he doesn't think Milton can withstand the pressure of his punches.
Right now he's fighting with a little bit of apprehension is the Magician.
The Magician is Dennis Milton, who is 16-2-1 with 5 knockouts, only 19 pro fights at age 30. Why so few fights? Why he's so inactive since turning pro in '85? He told us he may be inactive fighting, but he has been sparring with world-class opponents, as we mentioned. But Ferdy, I really wonder about that.
That's absolutely, it's nonsense. I mean, you have to have tune-up fights. You have to get in there in competition. In the gym won't do it, and especially not if you're going to face a Julian Jackson, who is allergic. Good right hand by Jackson.
Jackson looking to air it out here in the very first round.
Milton foolishly holding on to the rope instead of covering up. He is very apprehensive and tight. All that ring rust is showing. He certainly doesn't look like he belongs in the ring with Julian Jackson.
Midway through the first, Milton, who last fought just to set the record straight June 28th, the second round TKO over Pat Brennan in Vegas, said he feels Jackson doesn't have the skills and that this fight won't go to the judges. Well, right now, Jackson's looking to end it in the opening round. And down goes Milton.
He does not look like he is going to get up. He looks like he's part of the fixture. He's part of the canvas. The Magician is down for the count.
And it is all over in round #1. Julian Jackson retains his WBC middleweight championship, knocking out Dennis Milton.
So much for the theory that you can go to the gym and work 18 months and hope to face a guy like Julian Jackson.
This is Jackson's 10th first-round knockout, and he is now 42-1 with 40 KOs, 6-0 in championship bouts. His average rounds per championship bout, 4. This one in the first.
Well, fights like that, he really doesn't have to worry about his eyesight because he didn't get hit once.
And Dennis Milton is still being attended to flat on his back.
Well, the precaution that they take here, and they do in New Jersey and in Florida, many states, is to leave him down, even though his eyes are open and he responds, until he's fully clear-headed. Then they sit him up, and then from there they progress to standing. His eyes are open. He seems to be reacting, so it doesn't look like any difficulty there. It's just a resounding knockout. When Julian Jackson knocks you out, he knocks you out. I mean, they could count to 100.
And we feel for Dennis Milton right now. Mills Lane is hovering over him to make sure at least he's comfortable.
Well,
and he's in bad shape, getting up very slowly. The doctor's there, of course.
They should not be in a hurry. I mean, there's no point in being in a hurry to make a guy get up. I mean, let him get up when he's nice and when you know that he has his senses about him, so he doesn't topple over again or so nothing else happens. Julian, on the other hand, doesn't look like he's even started to sweat right.
Milton is on his feet, so thank goodness for that. Now they'll sit him down.
Well, when a fighter fights as apprehensively as he has, anything that touches him seems to respond even more. Now let's take a look at that first shot. Boom, that right hand, and you could see the reaction was to fold. I mean, there was just absolutely, and then to grab hold. There was no concept of counter punching here or to protect himself. Now let's take a look from a different view. You see how solid it landed, and how this guy's just so tight. He's just not loose and limber. Because he doesn't go with a punch. It's just like hitting a bag. Look at the boom. It's just that's unfortunate. He was too tight. He didn't get a chance to catch himself and start in his own rhythm. It's kind of unfair, but for him, because he just didn't have it to be in there with Julian Jackson. Let's see what happened at the end of the fight when Jackson, who's one of the great finishers in boxing, finally puts the quietus on the hapless magician. And there goes Dennis Milton and part of the canvas.
Well, the magician pulled a disappearing act here against Julian Jackson.
Well, no magic tonight. It was just a straight, hard performance by a really good champion in Julian Jackson. Let's take another look at that. The right hand that lands alongside of his face just short circuits all the neurons, and there is nothing left to keep him standing or in the conscious world. He's knocked out.
Julian Jackson's mission to unify the middleweight title after WBA champ Mike McCallum meets IBF champ James Toney in December. McCallum is the only man ever to beat Julian Jackson back in 1986 when they fought for the junior middleweight championship. So let's just hope that the challenger Dennis Milton is okay. Let's get the official word from our ring announcer Jimmy Lennon Jr.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have the time. 2 minutes, 10 seconds in round number 1. The winner by way of knockout and still the WBC middleweight champion of the world, Julian the Hawk Jackson.
So there you have it. Julian Jackson retaining his WBC middleweight championship, his first title defense.
Out of his coach. Oh no, I got it.
Here at the Mirage in Las Vegas, we told you at the top of the broadcast about the knockout percentage of the stellar Julian Jackson. Here's where he stands. He's at the head of the class in terms of current world champions and their highest knockout percentage. You notice number 4, Evander Holyfield. I mentioned Mike McCallum, a man he would love to get to once again in a rematch. He lost to him, the only man he ever lost to. Ferdy Pacheco standing by in the ring. Ferdy?
Well, one of the best kept secrets in boxing. You've got this fantastic knockout record. You're a most amazing kind of fighter. When you get people finished, you don't waste time, do you?
That's right. Thank you very much. But first of all, let me say, I got to say thanks to my Lord and Jesus, my Savior, Jesus Christ. I dedicate this one to him. And I also just like to thank Dan King. And this fight was dedicated to a good friend of mine that had a severe heart attack, Elroy Tatum. Tatum, this for you.
Very good. Now, this has to lead to you fighting the winner of the other 2 champions in order to unify the title under one man.
Let's go. I've been waiting for this a long time. McCallum, I'm ready. I've got the experience now. I was green when I met you, but now Julian Jackson is ready to make his fame.
You're referring to Mike McCallum, the only man to beat you.
That's right.
When he caught you nice and green and fresh, and now you're ready for Mike McCallum specifically?
Definitely. I got a whole lot of people out there that is on my list. They call me the Hawk because there's a lot of chicken running from the Hawk. And I want the world to know that Julian Jackson is making his mark in the boxing today.
Well, there wasn't too much magic to the magician today.
Let's go, Terry Norris.
Did you feel that his inexperience and the fact he hadn't fought for 18 months, he looked so cold and he looked so tight. Did you think that made it easier to knock him out?
I think Terry Norris was intimidated. Dennis Milton was intimidated because of my record. I saw it in the weigh-in. I saw it at the press conference, and I decided that I'm going to go out and I'm going to attack him.
Don, how hard is it to make the elimination batch and him to fight the winner? How hard is that?
It's been very hard to get anybody to fight the Hawk. They've all been running away from him and making excuses and acting like they don't want to fight him and act like they do want to fight him but not fighting him. But now he's ready to fight. We're going after everybody out there. I don't care who it is. We're going to take all names and fight.
Thank the man.
On Showtime.
Thank you. That's Don King. And for a man who has proven to be indeed the Hawk tonight, congratulations. And now back to Steve Albert standing by with Mike Tyson.
All right, thanks very much, Ferdy and Julian Jackson. And as promised, here is the former heavyweight champion of the world, Mike Tyson. And Mike, we just saw a sparkling display there by the WBC middleweight champion, Julian Jackson. Aside from Mike Tyson, do you think maybe Jackson has the most devastating punch in boxing today?
Well, I'm very impressed. He continues to improve more and more, and he's a two-time champion and extremely confident. And in that fight with Dennis, I saw that he caught him early and he kept him hurt and he finished him.
Did you think at any point Milton's boxing savvy could overcome the punching power of Julian Jackson?
Well, at the point he was moving around, but he didn't appear to seem that he had the firepower to stop him, because as you notice, Julian Jackson was constantly aggressive, and Dennis Milton continued to move around, and he didn't just seem like he was overwhelmed with the pressure.
Well, I got to ask you, you've been in the newspapers, just shifting from one gear to another, on the front pages of all the newspapers, but despite everything, are you back here in Las Vegas to stay in preparation for your November 8th World Heavyweight Championship fight against Evander Holyfield?
Oh, absolutely, Steve. I'm training, I'm in great shape, and I want my title back.
Will anything stand in the way of your attempt to recapture your World Heavyweight title?
Nothing at all. I look forward to November 8th, and November 8th will be a big moment in my life when I capture the heavyweight title for the second time.
All right, Mike. We were prepared to ask you all kinds of questions about the Jackson-Milton matchup, but instead what we're going to do, because it only went one round, 2:10 of the first round, let's take another look at the replay of that one and only round and have you describe what happened. We'll get Mike Tyson's thoughts here. All right, here is the opening bell. This is the 10th first-round knockout in the career of Julian Jackson. What were you thinking here at the outset?
And as you see right here, you see Julian jumping right on Dennis, throwing punches with bad intention, having no respect for Dennis' punching power. And as you see, the first punch he landed, he hit him off the side of the head. I believe off his temple, and he's unsturdy right here. And as you see, he's just stalking him, having no respect, being very reluctant about his punching power, just walking in and he's punching to the body, and have no fear, no intimidation at all of Dennis.
Mike, how do you think Julian Jackson would do in a rematch with WBA champ Mike McCallum, only this time as middleweights?
Well, this would be a very good fight, and people who think Mike McCallum is an old man and washed up are mistaken. Mike is a very experienced fighter, and now, as you know, Julian experiences also, and he's looking forward for the match. But I'm looking forward to a great match if those two were to meet.
Well, McCallum first has to take on James Toney, the IBF champ, in December. We'll see following that if McCallum should emerge victorious, if Jackson can take him on to unify the middleweight title. Meanwhile, here in the first round, Julian Jackson, the Hawk, making quick work.
And seeing that Dennis wanted to take the shot and stand up, showing his discipline, but it was just too much. It was just too much punching power for him.
And the end is near.
And you notice he's throwing short punches, which are delivered at least 6 or 7 inches, and those are the punches that have tremendous damage on him. And as I say, Julian's just stalking him, having no respect, not moving in with his jab at all, because I believe he has no respect at all for his punching power. And as you notice, Dennis Milton has been inactive for 18 months, I believe. And someone that's inactive, you must have ring experience. Training is good, sparring is good, but you must be in the ring among the crowd. The experience of being there fighting among 30,000, 10,000 people is just more the better. Because there's a lot of world champions in the gym.
Yeah, we talked about that earlier, and it came to bear here tonight in this fight. Dennis Milton, no match for Julian Jackson, born-again Christian. He led life in the fast lane before discovering Christianity. His brother's a pastor back in the Virgin Islands, and there is Dennis Milton flat on his back.
And you know, you hate to see something like that happen because they're both good men, and I knew Dennis for many of years back in New York, and just two men giving their best.
So you've been watching a replay of the one and only round as Julian Jackson retained his WBC middleweight title. We're here at the beautiful Mirage.